The HOA fined me for blocking a driveway that only I could use. The problem was the driveway wasn't theirs, and I wasn't even in their HOA. The letter sat on my kitchen counter for most of the afternoon, propped against a bowl of fruit like junk mail. White envelope, windowed address. The return label read, Cedar Brook Estates Homeowners Association. That alone made my jaw tighten slightly, but not enough to ruin my day. I had lived on this property for 7 years. Quiet road, long driveway, no shared amenities, no gate, no clubhouse. When I bought the place, my realtor had been clear, outside HOA jurisdiction. That was one of the reasons I chose it. Eventually, curiosity won. I slit the envelope open with my thumb and unfolded the letter. Notice of violation. Unauthorized use of community access driveway. Fine assessed, $75. Corrective action required within 10 days. I read it twice, slower the second time. They claimed my driveway, the gravel stretch that ran from the road to my garage, was a shared access route under HOA control. According to the letter, I had restricted access by placing a vehicle in violation of community flow. I actually laughed, out loud. My driveway ended at my garage. No one used it unless they were turning around by mistake. There was no gate, no signage, no shared easement, and yet here was a fine printed neatly with a due date. At the bottom was a signature line. Marcia L. Whitcomb, HOA Compliance Officer. The name rang a bell, not personally, but by reputation. Neighbors on the edge of the community had mentioned her before. Someone who took rules seriously, someone who liked paper trails. I folded the letter back into thirds and set it aside. Mistakes happen, clerical errors, wrong address in the system. The simplest explanation was usually the correct one. The next morning, I called the number listed. After 3 rings, a woman answered. Her voice was clipped, professional, and practiced. Cedar Brook Estates HOA, Compliance Department. Hi, I said, calmly. I received a violation notice yesterday. I think there's been a mix-up. My property isn't part of the HOA. There was a pause, the kind where you can hear keys clicking in the background. Address? She asked. I gave it. Another pause, longer this time. Yes, your property borders the community. That places it under limited compliance jurisdiction. I'm not sure what that means, I replied. My deed doesn't include any HOA agreement. Our updated maps show your driveway as part of a shared access corridor. That corridor leads to my garage. It doesn't connect to the neighborhood. Silence. Then, you can submit a dispute in writing. Instructions are on the notice. Her tone made it clear the call was over. I thanked her and hung up. That afternoon, I pulled out my closing documents. Deed, survey, plat map. Everything I had received when I bought the place. The boundary lines were clear. The driveway sat entirely within my parcel. No easements, no shared access language, nothing ambiguous. Still, I scanned everything and saved digital copies. I wrote a short, polite email to the HOA address listed on their website. Hello, I received a violation notice regarding my driveway. My property is not part of Cedar Brook Estates HOA, and my deed shows no shared access easement. I've attached my survey and closing documents for reference. Please confirm correction of this error. Thank you. I sent it and didn't think much more about it. 3 days later, another envelope arrived. Same return address. This time, the fine was $150. Second notice, it read. Failure to comply. They hadn't acknowledged my email, hadn't referenced my documents, hadn't corrected anything. Instead, the language was firmer, more official. It stated that continued non-compliance could result in restricted access measures. That phrase stuck with me. Restricted access to what exactly? That evening, I walked down to the end of my driveway and stood by the road. I looked left, then right. On the opposite side, the HOA neighborhood entrance curved inward, marked by a modest sign and neatly trimmed hedges. My driveway did not touch it. But I noticed something new. A small orange survey flag planted near the edge of my gravel, just beyond where the asphalt met dirt. I hadn't put it there. I didn't pull it out. I didn't touch it. I took a photo, checked the timestamp, and went back inside. That was the moment I stopped assuming this was a mistake and started treating it like a record-keeping exercise. The next morning, the orange flag was still there. It hadn't moved. No new ones had appeared. Just a single marker planted like a suggestion, not a boundary. I took another photo from a different angle, making sure the road sign and my mailbox were visible in the frame. Then I zoomed in on the flag itself. No company name, no survey markings, just orange plastic and a thin wire stem. I left it exactly where it was. By noon, I received a reply to my email, not from a person, but an automated message. Your inquiry has been received. Please allow up to 14 business days for review. 14 business days. My fine was due in 7. That afternoon, I noticed a white pickup truck slow down as it passed my driveway. It didn't stop, just rolled by at walking speed, then continued toward the HOA entrance. I watched from my porch until it disappeared. The following day, a laminated notice appeared on a metal stake near the flag. Proposed access adjustment. Cedar Brook Estates, HOA. The wording was careful, non-committal. It didn't say approved, it didn't say enforced, just proposed. It also showed a crude diagram, a shaded strip cutting across the edge of my driveway, labeled Community Vehicle Clearance. I took photos, close-ups, wide shots, one with my house number visible. Then I went inside and pulled up the county property records website. According to the county, nothing had changed. No new filings, no easements, no variances, no recorded actions of any kind. That evening, I drove down the road and parked just past the HOA sign. From there, I could see my driveway clearly. 2 cars turned into the neighborhood. None even glanced at my property. So who exactly needed community vehicle clearance? 2 days later, a man in a reflective vest stood near the flag. He wasn't measuring, he wasn't hammering, just standing there, clipboard in hand, staring at the ground. I approached slowly and stopped several feet away. "Morning," I said. He looked up, surprised. "Oh, hi. Can I help you?" "I'm with Cedar Brook," he said, tapping the clipboard, "just marking access points." "This is my driveway," I replied. "There's no shared access here." He nodded quickly, too quickly. "Yeah, I don't decide that stuff. I just mark what I'm told." "Who told you?" He hesitated. "The HOA office." "Did they give you a survey or permit?" He shook his head. "Just a map printout." "Do you have a copy?" He glanced down at the clipboard. "Not one I can give you." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. "Okay," I said. "I just want to be clear that you're standing on private property." His expression tightened. "I'll, let them know," he said, already stepping back. By the time I returned from work the next day, the laminated notice was gone. In its place was something else, a traffic cone. Bright orange, centered precisely where the diagram had shown the clearance strip. It partially blocked my driveway, not enough to stop me from using it, but enough to send a message. I parked, took photos from 3 angles, and then moved the cone 5 feet to the side. I didn't throw it, didn't remove it from the area, just repositioned it so my driveway was fully clear. The next morning, the cone was back. Same spot. This time, there were 2.
I photographed them, checked the timestamps. Then I pulled out my laptop and drafted a second email. Short, factual. On date, HOA representatives placed objects on my driveway without permission. This property is privately owned and not subject to HOA authority. Please confirm in writing that no further physical interference will occur. I attached the photos. Within an hour, I received a reply, this time from a real person, Marcia L. Whitcomb. The HOA is within its rights to ensure safe access for community vehicles. Failure to comply may result in additional corrective measures. She didn't mention my documents. She didn't dispute my ownership. She didn't explain the authority. She simply asserted it. That was when I stopped emailing. Instead, I opened a new folder on my computer. I named it Driveway. Inside, I created subfolders: photos, emails, notices, maps. Every file was labeled by date and time. Because whatever this was becoming, it was no longer about a misunderstanding. It was about a line they were trying to draw, quietly, and seeing whether I would step back.
The first thing that went missing was my mail. Not all of it, just one envelope. A utility bill I was expecting, marked as delivered in the online portal, but nowhere to be found in my mailbox. At first, I blamed the wind. Then it happened again 2 days later. This time, the delivery confirmation included a photo, a standard shot from the carrier showing the envelope halfway inside my mailbox. Same box, same post, same angle. But when I checked an hour later, the mailbox was empty. I didn't call the post office, not yet. Instead, I installed a small camera under the eave above my porch. It wasn't hidden. I wasn't trying to catch anyone in the act. I just wanted a record. I also switched to picking up my mail as soon as it arrived. 2 mornings later, I found a folded piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. Not in an envelope, just folded in half, clean and deliberate. It was a community access advisory. No letterhead, no signature, just a block of text explaining that temporary access adjustments were being made for safety and efficiency, and that residents were asked to avoid obstructing marked areas. I read it twice, then checked the ground. Someone had spray painted a thin white line across the edge of my gravel, cutting a shallow arc that mirrored the curve of the road. The paint was fresh. I took photos, close-ups of the line, wide shots showing my house number, one with my foot next to the paint for scale. Then I checked the county website again. Still nothing. That afternoon, a tow truck slowed as it passed my driveway. The driver leaned out the window and pointed. "Is this the one?" he called out, speaking to someone on the phone. "I don't know," I said evenly. "What are you looking for?" He frowned. "Dispatch says there's a driveway that's blocking access, might be unauthorized parking." "There's no unauthorized parking here," I replied, "and this is private property." He hesitated, then shrugged. "I'll double-check." The truck drove on. That was the first time someone outside the HOA acted on their instructions. It wouldn't be the last. The following day, a certified letter arrived. This one was addressed to resident, not to me by name. Inside was a formal-looking notice titled Notice of Intent to Enforce Community Access. It cited sections of HOA bylaws I had never agreed to, referencing adjacent property compliance and safety corridors. There was no mention of a deed, no legal citation outside their own documents. At the bottom was a deadline: 7 days. Failure to comply, it stated, could result in third-party remediation. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the county recorder's office. I asked a clerk to pull my parcel file. She did, flipping through the digital records on her screen. She said, "No easements, no recorded actions, nothing pending." I asked her to print a certified copy of my plat map and deed. She stamped them, signed them, and slid them across the counter. On the way home, I stopped by the local police substation, not to file a complaint, just to ask a question. Hypothetically, I said, if someone placed objects on my driveway or interfered with access without permission, what would that be considered? The officer thought for a moment. Civil issue mostly, he said, unless it blocks emergency access or involves tampering. Then it can escalate. Who would have authority to block a private driveway? Only the owner or someone with a recorded easement or court order. I thanked him and left. That evening, I noticed something new. A small sign had been staked near the road, just far enough from my driveway to avoid being obviously on it. No parking, fire access. It faced outward toward the street. It wasn't issued by the city, no seal, no ordinance number, just red letters on white plastic. I photographed it, then checked the city's fire access maps online. My driveway wasn't listed. That night, I didn't sleep much, not because I was angry, but because the pattern was becoming clear. They weren't trying to win an argument, they were trying to create a reality. If enough signs appeared, enough lines were painted, enough third parties were involved, then eventually it would look like authority had always been there. The next morning, I called a surveyor, a licensed one. I scheduled a full boundary verification, complete with stakes, documentation, and filed results. When I hung up, I added a new subfolder to my driveway directory, Survey, Official. Because if they wanted to play quietly, I was prepared to answer the same way. The survey crew arrived on a Tuesday morning. 2 trucks, branded doors, tripods, measuring wheels, and bright flags that looked nothing like the one the HOA had planted earlier. These flags had labels, dates, coordinates. I didn't hover, I let them work. By noon, the lead surveyor walked over and handed me a preliminary map. "Your boundary is clean," he said. "Driveway's fully inside it. No encroachments, no easements, no gray area." "Can you file it?" I asked. He nodded. "County record by the end of the week." That afternoon, I noticed movement down the road. Marcia Whitcomb stood near the HOA entrance with another woman, both of them staring toward my property. They didn't approach, didn't wave, just stood there longer than necessary. The next day, I received an email from Marcia. Not a notice, not a warning, a request. "Please provide documentation supporting your claim that the driveway is not subject to HOA access requirements." I replied with a single sentence. "Certified survey is being filed with the county this week." Her response came faster than any before. "HOA enforcement actions will continue pending review." That was the moment she crossed from assumption into action. 2 days later, a contractor truck pulled up at the edge of my driveway. The men unloaded metal posts. I walked outside and stopped at the edge of my gravel. "Can I help you?" I asked. "We're installing access markers," one of them said. "HOA order." "This is private property," I replied. "You don't have permission to install anything here." He looked uncertain. "They said it was approved." "By who?" He checked his paperwork. "Cedarbrook Estates HOA." "Do you have a permit?" I asked. He hesitated. "I don't think so." "Then I'm asking you to leave," I said calmly. He made a call, stepped away, came back a minute later. "They want it done," he said. "They said the area is under community control." "Then they can come tell me themselves," I replied. The crew packed up and left. An hour later, my phone rang. "Marcia." "I understand you interfered with authorized work today," she said. "I stopped unauthorized work on my property," I corrected. "You're obstructing a safety initiative." "There's no easement," I said. "No permit, no authority." "Our legal counsel disagrees." "Then your legal counsel can file something. Until then, no one installs anything on my driveway." She paused. "We will proceed accordingly," she said, and hung up. The following morning, a notice was taped to my mailbox post. Not inside the box, on the post itself. final notice of non-compliance. It referenced my address directly this time, full street number, no ambiguity. At the bottom was a sentence that changed everything. Failure to comply will result in the HOA installing permanent access markers on the affected area. Permanent. They had put it in writing. I photographed the notice, then carefully removed it and placed it in a clear sleeve. That afternoon, I checked the county recorder's site again. My survey had been filed, stamped, indexed, public. I printed 2 copies. One went into my driveway folder. The other went into an envelope addressed to Cedar Brook Estates HOA. Inside, I included a certified copy of the survey, a copy of my deed, and a cover letter, brief, factual, and unemotional. Please note the attached recorded survey confirming private ownership of the driveway area referenced in your notices. Any further physical alteration or installation on this property will be documented as trespass. I sent it certified. 2 days passed, then 3. On the 4th morning, I woke up to the sound of metal hitting gravel. I stepped onto the porch. 2 HOA contractors were drilling posts into the ground, not near the road, on my driveway. I said nothing. I took photos, videos, wide shots showing my house number, close-ups of the drill bit breaking the gravel surface. One of the workers noticed me. "Sir, we were told this is approved," he said. "I know," I replied. "Please continue." He hesitated. "No, it's fine," I added calmly. "Just do exactly what you were instructed to do." They installed 3 metal posts, bright reflective caps, fixed firmly into the ground. Then they left. I waited until their truck disappeared down the road. Then I opened my laptop, and for the first time since this began, I contacted an attorney. Because the HOA hadn't just overstepped, they had created physical evidence of trespass after being formally notified. And that mistake would not be reversible. The attorney didn't sound surprised. He listened while I explained the sequence: the notices, the cones, the painted line, the certified survey, the written warning, and finally the metal posts drilled into my driveway. When I finished, there was a short pause. "They installed after receiving recorded notice?" he asked. "Yes. And you have documentation of that notice being delivered. Certified mail, signature confirmed." Another pause. "That helps," he said. "A lot." He asked me to send everything: photos, emails, notices, the survey, the video of the drilling. I uploaded the driveway folder exactly as it was, no commentary, no extra explanation. The next morning, he called back. "They've got a problem," he said, "and it's not a small one." He explained it plainly. By installing permanent fixtures on my property after receiving documented proof of ownership, the HOA had exposed itself to a clear trespass claim. The fact that it was done deliberately and in writing eliminated most of the defenses they might have relied on. They didn't just assume authority, he said. They asserted it after being corrected. He drafted a letter that afternoon. It wasn't long, it wasn't aggressive, it simply stated facts. The driveway was privately owned, the HOA had no recorded easement, the survey was filed before installation, the installation constituted trespass and property damage. It demanded 3 things: immediate removal of all installed markers, written confirmation of cessation of enforcement actions, and compensation for restoration of the driveway surface. It gave them 5 business days. The letter went out by certified mail and email. For the first time since this began, there was silence. No new notices, no cones, no contractors. The no parking fire access sign disappeared overnight.
2 days later, I received an email, not from Marcia, but from a law firm. The tone was different, careful, neutral. They acknowledged receipt of the survey, acknowledged receipt of my attorney's letter, stated that the HOA was reviewing the matter internally. They asked for time. On the 4th day, a truck arrived, not a contractor, a flatbed. 2 men removed the metal posts carefully, filling the holes with temporary patch material. They didn't speak to me. They didn't look up. They were finished in under 30 minutes. I photographed the process from start to finish. That afternoon, another email arrived from the law firm. The HOA would be withdrawing enforcement actions related to my property. They would update internal maps. They would issue a clarification to staff and vendors. There was no apology, but there was something else. Attached was a document titled Notice of Correction. It stated that the driveway in question was not and had never been part of Cedarbrook Estates HOA jurisdiction. The wording was careful, but it was signed. 2 days later, a check arrived. It covered the cost of driveway restoration exactly as requested. No explanation, no conditions. I deposited it and scheduled a proper repair. A week passed, then another. No new mail, no signs, no flags. One evening, I saw Marcia again near the HOA entrance. This time, she didn't look toward my house. She stared at the ground. Later, a neighbor from the edge of the community stopped by while I was outside. "Hey," he said quietly, "just wanted to say thanks." "For what?" "They sent out a memo," he said, "about not enforcing outside boundaries anymore. Guess someone pushed back." I nodded. That night, I backed up the driveway folder to 2 separate drives. I labeled one of them Final, because while the HOA had retreated, the story wasn't finished yet. There was still one thing missing, an explanation on the record of how this had happened in the first place, and I intended to get it. I didn't ask for an apology. I didn't ask for a meeting. I asked for records. 2 weeks after the posts were removed, my attorney submitted a public records request to the HOA. Nothing aggressive, nothing accusatory, just a request for documents related to boundary determinations, access enforcement, and map updates affecting adjacent properties over the past year. They had to respond. What came back was thin at first. Meeting minutes with vague language, emails with clipped sentences, references to updated visual assessments and safety interpretations. But buried in the attachments was the piece that mattered, an internal email chain. It started months before my first fine, a resident complaint about delivery trucks turning around near the edge of the community, a suggestion from Marcia that the issue could be resolved by expanding perceived access control, a reply from another board member asking whether the area was actually within HOA boundaries. Marcia's response was brief. "Our maps show it as functionally connected. We can proceed unless challenged." Unless challenged. There it was. No survey, no filing, no authority. Just assumption, backed by momentum. The final email in the chain came after my survey had been filed, after the posts had been installed, after my attorney's letter. "We need to reverse course immediately. Exposure risk is now documented." That was the explanation. Not incompetence, not confusion. A decision made quietly that relied on no one pushing back. My attorney forwarded the records to me with a short note. "This closes the loop," he wrote. "They won't try this again." A week later, I received one final piece of mail from the HOA. Not a notice, not a fine, a policy update. It outlined a new requirement. Any enforcement involving boundary-adjacent properties now required a recorded survey and legal review before action. The language was formal, neutral, but it existed because of what happened. I printed it and placed it in the driveway folder. Then I closed the folder. Spring came. The driveway repair cured cleanly. The gravel settled. The surface looked like it always had. No cones returned. No signs reappeared. No trucks slowed as they passed. One afternoon, months later, a fire engine rolled through the neighborhood during a routine drill. It used the main entrance, turned cleanly, and left without touching my driveway, exactly as it always should have. Sometimes people ask if it was stressful. It wasn't. I never argued, never shouted, never blocked anyone in. I documented. I waited. I responded only when necessary. Because authority doesn't need volume. It needs proof. The HOA tried to create reality through repetition, signs, notices, third parties, pressure, but none of it mattered once the record existed. That's the part they underestimated. Paper outlasts posturing. Maps outlast assumptions. And once something is written, stamped, and filed, it doesn't move just because someone wants it to. The line stayed where it had always been, not because I fought for it, but because it was real.